in our culture and in various other cultures, we have an absolutely extraordinary attitude to the new member of human society. Instead of saying frankly to children, "How do you do? Welcome to the human race," we are playing a game, and we are playing by the following rules. We want to tell you what the rules are so that you'll know your way around, and when you've understood what rules we're playing by, when you get older, you may be able to invent better ones. But instead of that, we still retain an attitude to the child that he is on probation. He's not really a human being. He's a candidate for humanity. Therefore, to preserve the role of parent, or to preserve the role of teacher, which is that they string you out, and in just this way, we have a whole system of preparation of the child for life, which always is preparation and never actually gets there. In other words, we have a system of schooling which starts with grades. And we get this little creature into the thing with a kind of, "Come on, kitty, kitty, kitty," and we get it always preparing for something that's going to happen. So you go into nursery school as preparation for kindergarten. You go to kindergarten as preparation for first grade. And then you go up the grades till you get to high school. And then comes a time when maybe if we can get you fascinated enough with this system, you go to college. And then when you go to college, if you're smart, you get into graduate school and stay a perpetual student and go back to be a professor and just go round and round in the system. But in the ordinary way, they don't encourage quite that. They want you after graduate school, or after graduation, commencement as it's called, beginning, to get out into the world. And so you've been trained for this, and now you've arrived. But when you get out into the world at your first sales meeting, they've got the same thing going again, because they want you to make that quota. And if you do make it, they give you a higher quota. And come along about the 45 years of age, maybe you're vice president. And suddenly it dawns on you that you've arrived. With a certain sense of having been cheated, because life feels the same as it always felt. And you are conditioned to be in desperate need of a future. So the final goal that this culture prepares for us is called retirement. When you will be a senior citizen, and you will have the wealth and the leisure to do what you've always wanted, but you will at the same time have impotence and false teeth and no energy. So the whole thing from beginning to end is a hoax. And furthermore, some other aspects of the hoax, just for kicks. You are involved, by and large, in a very strange business system which divides your day into work and play. Work is something that everybody does, and you get paid to do it because nobody could care less about doing it. In other words, it is so abominable and boring that you can get paid for doing it. And the object of doing this is to make money. And the object of making money is to go home and enjoy the money that you've made. When you've got it, you see, you can buy pleasure. And this is a complete fallacy. Money never can buy pleasure, because all pleasures depend upon not putting down a symbol of power, money, but upon disciplines. In other words, now in Sausalito, where I live, we have pier after pier full of fine boats, motor cruisers, sailing boats, all sorts of things, which nobody ever uses, because they've been bought on the falling for the ad line that if you buy this thing, you will have pleasure, you will have status, you will have something or other. But then they suddenly discover that having a boat requires the art of seamanship, which is difficult but rewarding. Therefore, nobody has time for it, and all they do with the boats is have cocktail parties on them at the weekend. And in myriads of ways, you see, you go home, we're the wealthiest people in the world, and you would think that having earned your money, you would have a great banquet and an orgy and so on, but nobody does. They eat a TV dinner, which is just a warmed over airline food. And then they spend the evening looking at an electronic reproduction of life, which is divided from you by a glass screen. You can't touch it, you can't smell it. And you have a strange feeling, you see, that the whole procession of grades that was leading to something in the future, to that goody, that gorgeous, voluptuous goody that was lying at the end of the line, it never quite turns up. And this is because from the beginning, we condition our children to a defective sense of identity. And this, I think, is the most important feature in the whole thing, that a child grows into our culture, and this is not only Western culture, it's equally true in Japan, an area of which I can speak with some first-hand knowledge. We condition the child in a way that sets the child a life problem which is insoluble, and therefore attended by constant frustration. And as a result of this problem being insoluble, it is perpetually postponed to the future, so that one is educated to live in the future, and one is not ever educated to live today.
So, I wasn't quite sure how I was gonna start all of this when I put this together. Been kind of staying up pretty late, been pretty stressed out, waiting for a lot of stuff to go through, just get finished in my life, get back on some kind of track of mobility. And there are kind of a couple of things that I want to talk about, so I'm making this video. I'm not sure which way it's going to lean more towards, so we'll just kind of have to see how it goes. Let's see if my mic problems have stopped long enough for me to finish out this video. But let's see. So what I wanted to talk about first was the GATE program, but specifically in this video I want to talk about the hearing test, I guess, to start off with. And I don't remember that being in the GATE program because I didn't make the GATE program until middle school. And the hearing tests were done when we were really young at my school, in kindergarten and pre-K and maybe first grade. So I remember doing it maybe twice. And the most thing that stood out the most was just waiting in line to get it done, and the mystery behind whether or not I did good at it or not. I mean, it makes sense that they're not going to tell the kid whether their hearing's really good or not, and maybe just release that to the parents. But I don't remember my mom knowing much about these tests. I guess she figured if I had really bad hearing, they would have known by now. I don't know. That's the confusing part. It was really confusing walking away not knowing whether you did the right thing or not. It was a very weird test. And I've heard the rings throughout the rest of my life. I hear a lot of different things about what they're about, and it just reminds me of the ringing and old bells and towers. And I know there's a few towers I dream about, a lot of legends of towers, but I think I just wanted to open with that, about the GATE program. And in my school they called it the TAG program, and I didn't enter it till middle school. And I think the prerequisites required to enter it was consistently on the honor roll, I think, for a while or all year. I wasn't sure. Some specifics on that, getting in, escaped me, but I remember I didn't like homework. I was really smart and I didn't get through stuff. I just didn't want to comply with all the extra work. You're a kid. I'm in this life to live. And so nobody really taught me the essence of discipline. And as an adult, I've had to reteach myself self-discipline a lot. Being part of the TAG program, or the GATE program, as I've now learned to call it, you definitely get this sense that you should be able to accomplish a lot more with a lot less because you're so much smarter. That's kind of what they almost exactly tell you. And then the only difference between me and anybody that I knew in the program doing well is the fact that they're already probably born into the higher end of the class than me. That's it. I didn't get rewarded for good grades. I didn't get allowances. We were poor, so it was nothing extra we could do. Maybe I was rewarded with more trust and responsibility and accountability. Grew up faster. Since I proved that I could, I don't know, was gifted enough to understand things, I guess. I'm not sure. But like I said, there was a different time for the test and a different time for when I was actually in the program. When I was in the program, it surprised me how very few kids were in there. The popular kids, the athletic kids who had to get good grades to be an athlete and participate in sports, they weren't there. Any people who would complain about bad grades and allowances, they weren't there. It was just a few nerds and a few smart jocks, and maybe it was probably 5 of us students, and it was across multiple grades. And there was no merit that came along with this. It was like a cushiony distraction. We did mock trial and field trips to places like the Biodome and camp to do thought obstacles. Stuff like that, cushiony stuff. It was no merit. It didn't help us get anywhere. We didn't get special access to grants or scholarships or nothing like that. Nothing was promised out of that. Nothing I can remember. And it ended as soon as I went to high school. And after that is when I turned into more of a risk-taking rebel. But it seemed like the whole program itself was just a cushiony distraction for the minds that couldn't be molded as the others are. It'd be really interesting to get back into touch with my friends from there and see how it's going. But that's a whole different story. Okay, so now we move from the flooding of this information from the GATE program, also known to me as TAG, Talented and Gifted, to the Mudflood. And why are these connected? Well, when you learn about the Mudflood, it's the same thing as when I was learning about the electric geology and all the fossils I have around. These things are everywhere, and if you start looking, you can find it and compare it to what other people are saying. So it's not just you in an echo chamber. It's you comparing it with other people and sharing information. This is the only way to proceed with this research, sharing in a community. Anyways, just like with the electric universe evidence, I started finding mudflood evidence, and I had to go back when I first heard about it to places I had known, or I thought I had known very well. What do you know more well than the place you grew up in this realm, your hometowns where you went to school? So I ventured through that, and I'm going to show you some of the things I found through the air, and I'm going to narrate a little tour through a couple of the towns in the middle of the Arizona desert that I grew up in. But first, I guess I have to answer or ask, what is the mudflood? What does it mean? What does it mean to me? Of course, a lot of people in this research have a lot of different ideas, perspectives coming into it, and I came in on the electric universe perspective, so I believe that it has to do a lot with plasma in our electrical environment. That's not just big flood of water and mud. If we have a lot of water, H2O, those highly heated in plasma, any contact with the ground or any other water would cause dispersion of charge and heat. Stone would sponge out and kind of like cook and sponge and kind of like pop like popcorn. So that's a lot of stuff that I've coupled together from watching and learning other people, and picking it apart and figuring out what kind of perspective I could bring to it from the electric universe. So the plasma could have done a lot of things depending on what it was, and if water, really heated water, swapped through a town made of bricks and it disintegrated those bricks, it would turn to mud. And so that's where the mud could have come from too. Not just rain or floods, but just things melting into mud and that rolling over the ground. And we also have earthquakes and the seismic anomaly of liquefaction, and you just have to play Fallout and study that kind of artillery to get a good example of that. So there's so many different possibilities, maybe coalescing into different events, different severities, pockets of preservation, all of this. So that's my take on it. And I'm sure a lot of people new to this probably didn't pick up on any of that, but that's okay. We'll continue. There's many anomalies in these small towns I found afterwards that we can just rabbit hole into, but I think I'm going to start off with a quick guide. Now, we have mines that this whole town and area was built around. One big one, supposedly the largest one in the world, but everywhere says that, and I'm starting to question any claim, especially when they say that the world's largest, the world's deepest, whatever. Everything was that at some point, it seems like, when you do this research. But in my small town of Mammoth, when I follow the train tracks, you don't really find any facilities or anything that could facilitate even the plain washing of the ore that they claim the whole town was built around. There's an even older town that's been closed exactly next to the giant tiger mine. So not being able to find any industrial complexes to match with the railroad track to actually do the work that was supposed to be done here, I just concluded that maybe the school, the elementary school I went to, was perhaps the site of the facilities, or the foundation of the facilities. And so I decided to explore that and the towns for a while. I kind of got lost down quite a few rabbit holes looking for the history, because this town was made by magma, and I found a few videos to clip in to kind of work my point around. My main goal was looking for old pictures, old video footage, or accounts of history that I didn't know, because it was towns built in the 50s and within the past recently, supposedly, that are just ghost towns now, and I don't remember any old pictures. So I looked for old pictures, and I looked for what the streets look like, what they were made out of when they were first made. So I found a couple of interesting things. I'm not sure what to point out, because I'm not sure how new any of you guys are to this topic, but seasoned researchers will probably know what we're looking at. But for the new people, I'm surprised you really didn't jump on the first popular YouTube channel that's talking about this stuff. But if you find yourself here, then you're probably a little bit talented and gifted yourself. So my hometown Mammoth was supposedly founded in 1876, and by a contrast or compare, San Manuel, the next town over, where I went to high school, because there was no high school in Mammoth, nothing pretty there. San Manuel was founded in 1950, so it was almost 100 years between each other, and they grew up mining the same mine, which changed from an underground mine to an open pit mine, where they used extraction processes, basically acid leaching, when they turn the tailings from all the dirt they piled up into acid ponds where they leach out different minerals. They stopped mining ore completely. It was plainly obvious to me by the time I was growing up, from all the closed schools and the closing and dwindling work at the mines, that the age of prosperity was at its end. My family lived here for almost a full generation, my mom and her siblings. And then, everything dried up. The jobs went elsewhere. I was in marching band in high school, and we were going to play during the demolition of the smokestacks in town. But they moved that a year, and they demolished them the year after I had moved.
Goes. Oh my god.
They're gonna fall on each other.
Oh my god.
Wow.
Oh my god.
That's it.
So when you walk around the town, it seems a little laid out for handling rainwaters and flood situations, but some of it seems kind of counterintuitive. And I think this news clip will explain that.
Well, cleanup underway after monsoon storms soaked the town of San Manuel very hard last night.
Fast-flowing water tore into the streets. Flooded schools were drying out soggy rugs today. Flooded businesses had to clear out thick layers of mud. 9 in Your Side's Craig Smith checked out the damage and the recovery.
Here in San Manuel, monsoon ripped through late afternoon yesterday. Fast-moving water managed to get under the cracks in the pavement here and peel it back. Angel Bejarano caught video of the water as it rushed through, undermined the pavement, and dug deep holes in the exposed earth. The rain came down so hard,
Yeah, I'm just going to mention it was kind of interesting to see those giant, look like limestone blocks of concrete or rock under the streets. Who knows? It was weird. Looked odd. Anyways, continue.
Ochoa thought he was seeing parts of a roof, not parts of a road.
The water itself looked like it was at least knee-high. But once it hit that hole right there, that when it ran off, it was higher than waist deep.
By late morning, Pinal County Public Works crews were measuring the damage and figuring out what's needed to fix it. Trouble poured into plenty of places, like Dale's Auto Collision Center, where a thick layer of mud led to a long morning of shoveling out. Between San Manuel's elementary school and Combination Junior and Senior High, 16 classrooms and a gym flooded. After a lot of work, the schools were still on track to open August 6th.
Got my rain boots on and we were out there. We had community members, board members, teachers, staff, our maintenance, great people in this community.
A very interesting note real quick. That principal at that school that I went to in that video was actually the tag teacher when I was in tag. She was also my English teacher while I was in junior high after the tag program closed. I think she might have mentored my older brother with his special needs. So that's nice to see her doing well. She was pregnant with either her first or second child when she had us in the tag program. So it's nice to see she made it to principal, finally. I'm in my mid-30s. Anyways, ignore me. Let's continue.
That have helped out.
The design of the streets probably helped protect the houses here. Most of them are uphill, so the water flowed away from them. But that helped the water collect here and have that much more power to tear up the street. In San Manuel, Craig Smith, KGUN 9, on your side.
Pinal County estimates it had about $200,000 in storm damage around San Manuel. Officials say quick repairs are a top priority.
So what did you think about those concrete blocks or whatever poking out into that street there? It looked like there's a lot more going on than I am going to be able to find enough pictures to even question or explain. But let's continue to another video, I think. So, okay. The town I went to high school in is called San Manuel. San Manuel, like Spanish, like there was a missionary there, but there never was. And it was founded in 1950s. I don't know why it's named that. But anyways, these people kill it trying to pronounce it.
Metals. The mines are often the heartbeat of the town.
So what happens when those mines close down? A team of filmmakers from ASU's Cronkite School of Journalism and School of Sustainability went to San Manuel, Arizona to find out. Here is a special presentation of their short film, Forgotten.
3, 2, 1, fire.
Grown men were standing in cars and just tears flowing down their faces.
Growing up, that was like the thing. You would point out the window, look, it's the smokestacks, and you would see smoke just rolling out of these two stacks. And like my dad always used to say, if you see the smoke rolling, then you know you're still going to have a job and money's to be made.
Well, we missed the smokestacks because as you were coming down the highway from Oracle, we could always see the smokestacks, so we knew how to get home.
The town of San Manuel was said to be constructed.
So yeah, I decided to pause it here when they're saying that it's constructed in 1950 by the Magma Mine Corporation. And I'm just taking a good look at this road. And these houses look already built. They almost look lived in or modified specifically to each person's taste, but it is empty. It is dead empty. I wonder if that's a palm tree up over the hill. I can't zoom in on it right now while I'm recording, but this is very interesting. The road itself looks like it's the last thing that needs to be done, along with all the many, many walls that still have to go into these houses. But the houses themselves look so... Jesus, Doug.
Constructed around 1950 to 55. But the mining's been going on in this area since the 1880s. The mine was known as maybe the deepest underground mine in the world at one time.
For someone without a college education, it was, in fact, it paid more than a lot of jobs with college education.
Back then, we didn't live payday to payday. We had a good income. We took vacations. We went places. We bought, probably everybody in town had new cars and drove, and we all started buying our homes here.
If you lived in San Manuel, they took care of your houses. If you had a broken window or broken cooler, you called up the maintenance people and they'd come and fix it.
Mother Magma used to take care of all these things for us. They funded the schools. We used to have band and art and auto shop and metal shop. It was amazing.
We'd be down at Avenue B School and we'd go out at recess and we'd play on the playground where there'd be play softball or football or basketball or whatever. And these smelter smoke would come down from the stacks at the smelter. And some days it would just fall right down onto San Manuel. And you would cough and sputter and eyes would burn and run. But being kids, we would stay out there playing as long as we could.
But we didn't know any better. You know, that was just normal.
I don't know if you ever tasted sulfuric acid smoke. It's pretty bad.
If you had a white car, that smoke would mess up your paint on your car.
And I don't think the big environmental movement came till later, maybe 70s or 80s. And outfits kind of like Greenpeace and stuff came in and did some protesting, and they even hung a banner from the smokestacks down in there about stopping the smoke and clean up the environment and stuff like that.
I don't think anybody really, was with Greenpeace. Why would they be? You know, I mean, this is our town. This is the way we live. Was with Greenpeace. Why would they be? You know, I mean, this is our town. This is the way we live. This is what we do to survive.
As of that time, the jobs, the economy, and everything was the #1 concern.
Magma would figure out a way to keep the company running. BHP came in, and Magma sold out to them. And BHP is a huge company, they're worldwide. When the price of copper dropped, BHP said, well, we can't make the money that we need to keep it running, and they pulled out.
The company was really bad about it. They didn't want people to sabotage the place or anything like that. So one time they actually called somebody in and they got a big PA and they stood there at the entrance to before we got on the cage, and they were telling us, hey, go to work, everything's fine, don't worry, all these rumors are not true. And then they close.
My daughter had 4 children. We didn't know what we were going to do. We didn't know where the next day. They literally didn't tell us anything. That we're closing the doors, goodbye.
I lived here all my life. I saw people hurt. People just had that look in their eyes like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? 3,000 people out on, without a job.
I know a couple people that actually committed suicide after the mine closed, because when you've done a certain job your whole life and you have no other skill set other than doing that job, and there are no more jobs like that, you don't know what to do.
They didn't have any time to prepare, go out and look for jobs or change things, and so it was a shock on the whole community.
They didn't get a stipend to get laid off. They didn't give them anything extra.
And a lot of them moved away. They had to. There was no job.
When people started going elsewhere for work, it hurt the businesses, I think, the most.
We had a thriving upper shopping center, and all of those stores, one by one, have closed out. They've closed Avenue B, Gardner Middle School, and they closed First Avenue. They're beautiful schools. When Magma was here, they took care of our roads. They took care of our garbage. They actually took care of everything. When the mine shut down, the county was supposed to come in and do that stuff. It doesn't get done anymore. We're kind of forgotten children for the county. The good part is the cleaner air.
Pass me by if you're only passing through.
Copper Town Days 2022.
And that, my friends, is the fate of every mining town. It doesn't matter whether it's the biggest underground, above ground, largest producing. This is the fate of every mining town, sooner or later. And sometimes before the mine even shuts down. As you saw, when magma dispersed and sold out to BHP. I'm pretty sure, as far as I can remember, BHP probably stopped taking care of everything, and everything deteriorated long before the mine finally shut down out of business. And then even longer after that, until they finally cleared everything out and demolished those smokestacks. This is a very sordid history. It's kind of hard to look up. I mean, I kind of appreciate the other towns that at least bother making up all this history to look up, but even the scant history about this town is very hard to find. Even in the video, they were talking about mining going on here since 1880s. But the mines never stop, and they never really let go, because once a new mining technique is found, they go right back to the same old places and push everybody else off. For an example of that, if you're interested in the video footage of the drive at the beginning of this video, that was on the road from Superior to Oak Flats. Oak Flats is a sacred Native American ground where they celebrate the solstice and the equinox, the local tribes, and it's a great, rare oak forest in these hills right outside of town. But the mines there are trying to take it over, and they are not looking for ore. They are looking to sift through every single sand, dynamite every single rock face, and pulverize it and leach it into whatever the hell it is that they do with this stuff. And who knows what they found under it, because we will never will. And it's sad to see that I don't see much in updates on that project, Saving Oak Flats, but I will look it up pretty soon. But I think that is as much as I want to specifically talk about these mines and mines in general. I want to move to another point of my discoveries from just going back through and trying to capture footage for this. I got kind of sidetracked by just looking over the maps. So when we go searching for mudflood buildings and old world style buildings that survived the mudflood or the resets, we often look for churches and monasteries. They're usually smoking guns with their architecture. And I've never heard of this one. I've lived in Arizona my whole life, and I've heard of all of the missionaries, all the other stuff between Casa Grande and Tucson, but I never heard of a whole monastery right here, and I must have been driven past this tons of times. There's a mound here and all these buildings which have varying examples of different old world stone and brick architecture. And I wonder if these have been moved here or if they were built the same time as all their cousins across the rest of the realm. We see every single technique that we see in every single old buildings here in one place. And I think the only reason why they're allowed to be all different is because they're out here in the middle of nowhere. You know, there's palm trees and all the vegetation around it. The biggest one's looking like it's about maybe 150, which I only say because if I say any further than that, it gets harder to tell how tall a palm tree gets before it just dies. They need to be taken care of either by natural moisture or wells or somebody taking care of them here in the desert. And it's always interesting to see that and date it with saguaros. But again, you see this cream color brick, the red brick, terracotta, a bell tower, even like brick all over the ground. It's crazy. And this is definitely a spot I'm going to go to when I have more mobility. It's on the list, and I'll save looking up all the history for that time. But even this fountain with that very particular cross, and it just looks like such old stonework. This is worth the ground trip. I'll have to look up to see if it's even available to visit, but look at this inside. This is a chandelier that looks like a giant crown, and everything looks gilded in gold. And we see very similar architecture to what we see in all the other old world buildings we inspect. Growing up, I can only remember one Catholic church, or one big one next to our school. It was kind of bricked up like this in a brutalist style, but it was not dressed the same. It's Roman, there's all these pillars and columns. This could just be a hoard, a collection of relics from all the other old buildings brought here to be kept away. Who knows? And see, the two styles are joined together here. It just looks so well preserved. You can't tell if it was here a long time or if it's been cobbled together. But very, very... whoever built this cobbled it here, obviously. And here we see Onion Dome with really old style, like Antiquitech right here. some wood built into the top, but it's just crazy. And all these planted trees all around. And these pillars, again, gilded gold. Here's the chapel, I guess. These pews fold out, maybe. And who knows what kind of stone is in this ceiling under these columns. These have to be some legit columns to be holding up if that's stone. You know? Let's see. How many more pictures do we have left of this? And again, the aging of the vegetation, cactus and stuff, it's almost a dead giveaway. And here we have a collection of bells. And who knows if there's a buried building in this at the top, or if this monument was made for these bells. Because obviously we know there's a big move that moved all of the bells out of the old world, and it's surprised to see any are kept. But they weren't kept in their original places, I assure you. Again, looks like another chapel. Does not have the pillars in the middle. How many buildings are here? I don't know. This is a very worthwhile complex, and I don't see anybody in any of these pictures. And here we have a gazebo with a fountain, obviously lending credit to the idea that gazebos were originally water temples, or waterworks, utilities, and public access to the waterworks. And we have a nice arch. Who knows if there was a giant building that came all the way out to here, and it's been reformatted. Who knows? Who knows how old all of this is? Barrel cactus, I think this is. This isn't saguaro. But yep. I don't know how many times I might have passed this on the road. Now with these next couple of oddities that I found, I decided to use this nifty tool on Google Maps called the time lapse. So it's gonna lapse back the time on these photos. I figured it'd be an interesting thing to do to see how the vegetation grows. Maybe we can kind of use that to gauge our perception of how much time passes in the desert with the vegetation growth. Now, sometimes the seasons can be really explosive depending on the amount of rain that certain spots get, but let's just see what we find. As a broad perspective, I grew up in the mining towns to the right of this and the San Pedro River Valley. Tucson is below us and Phoenix is above. We go in here, we see a bunch of these dugout wells and a big canal going to all of the farming infrastructure of the valley. And we see all of these little retaining walls, which I feel like are very ancient. It might be from the mound builders themselves. There's a lot of questions around these. You should research any in your area. But of course, you find a quarry or landfill or a quarry. Not sure exactly. It doesn't look like they're filling much land. It's a bunch of dirt. It doesn't look like trash. But next to it, we have this square, pale dirt mound. It's not showing up as an incline. So who knows if it's just a giant square filled in with dirt. But it looks like there's canals, fencing, a lot of things leading to it. I don't know what that is there. But it's overgrown, and I decided to start messing with time a bit and see what would change. Try to see if we can figure out when this quarry or landfill was there, because since it's right next to it, we can assume that they're related to each other or that people have been here for a while. We feel like it's new if we just see this right now. Let's go back and see if we can find the time when this is built up. And here we go. There's no landfill. There's even more contrast actually, and it's still very planted. I wonder what exactly kind of desert plant is planted above this. And of course all the retaining walls and stuff for the canal infrastructure is there. They're pretty grown, and it takes a lot of collective water to keep stuff this green consistently here in the desert. It can be done, but to show you the farming infrastructure, and I'm not sure how much of this is in use nowadays, but just to get a good idea. This is again between Tucson and Phoenix. I think I wanted to turn the time back to see if we could see how much the farming changes within that time, and there's less farming. a lot less, looks like a lot more sand on the valley floor. And our pyramid, or our square, because I don't know how far up off the ground it goes, it's very flat, so it's still there. And I'm not sure how many times I move it back and forth, but this vegetation does not change. I think I decided to try to find the exact time frame that the landfill decided to appear here. Doesn't look like there's very many maintained roads, but it definitely looks like a footprint of some kind of massive infrastructure that, combined with all of these other retaining walls in the canal, it's just mind blending. And then see the way things drift from there to the bottom of the valley where the canal is. So this was a very interesting tool. And just to show you how incredible it is, the points are aligned northwest, east, and south. I'm not sure if the walls of the Great Pyramid or the points of the Great Pyramid are aligned that way, but it's very rare that I even find foundation structures or even the mound tanks, which I call them, aligned north, east, and south. So there's definitely a lot of thought put into whatever this is. There's the quarry, or the landfill. Who knows? Maybe landfill. They're definitely probably trying to process something out here, maybe. But again, very interesting tool, and I'm very surprised it was easy to use, even with my slow internet out here. But yeah, so you get a sense of the elapsing time and the growth and the change, the vegetation and the season and the desert, and everything around it is changing, except for the mound. Even the vegetation on it seems to be at a standstill. Wonder why that is. And I didn't find many other pyramid-like formations. But on to the next subject, the next anomaly. So as a quick preface, there's a river called the Gila River that breaks off the San Pedro Valley, and I feel like I've traveled it a lot as a kid or a baby. And I know there's a train track and a road going out there between there and the valley. So I decided to go look at the train tracks and look for train tunnels, because that's another thing they look for. And so I was surprised with what I found. All of these areas are relatively close by to each other. The monastery, that square foundation, pale white dirt square foundation, and the train track comes between the massive metro area of the valley and the mines in the San Pedro Valley, the desert and the mountain range that spans between them. So I had looked at these before I decided to look at the time lapse, so this is my first time time lapsing it when I was recording it. And after I looked at it and I tried to go back and look at specific things, my internet got pretty slow, but as we can see, there's been a lot of cloud covers, and when we pull back the data, I'm going to go as far back as I can, what we find is a satellite view. It's very little detail. And then after that, we get an aerial composite view that's more black and white. And so it's interesting to note the satellite view was so blurry, and then we didn't get a plain composite until after satellites, and it still wasn't in color. But it was just enough detail for what I needed to look at here. Now this is the pass that the river carved out at the edge of the valley. Kind of looking like a giant sphinx there. Blueprint to something there. But who knows? And here in a very differentially contrasted patch is what I was looking for. But with all my markers removed, I had trouble finding it, so I had to come back after I turned them on. Now these are a surprise because I spent hundreds of hours around Google Maps looking at Arizona, and I haven't found any trace of these so far, and these are the first ones. So shout out to John Levi for documenting coke ovens in Utah and New Mexico and all the other places, and here we clearly see these domes, and this is about what they look like now. When I found them, obviously, let's see, 5, and one is busted up. I think there's like a pile of soot at the bottom. But as we go back, the pile of soot disappears and the busted one is complete, right? So I hadn't done any research on the history of this. Before I put the time lapse on, I figured the time lapse would tell me most of the questions that I could answer, or it would tell me a lot more than any quick history lookup. So we see they're completely perfect, actually. Can't even see the doors in the front for some reason. It's weird. And there's no soot pile at the bottom. Take a good zoom out. There's a square up at the left. Looks like a foundation or something. It's up there. Yeah. You see this soot footprint, but it looks buried almost in sand. And it just gets more interesting, folks. This is just across the creek from the train tracks, and here, they're gone. There is just a road in a circle around where these coke ovens are. So it's really hard to picture what's going on from the satellite views, and I'll show you guys more. But yeah, we have found the time and date where they disappear. So, without looking up the history, if you attempt a little critical thinking here, we can assume between 2007-6 and 1992, these coke ovens appeared. Either they were built. We're going to say they were built because we're going to go with the easiest explanation, you know. And here's the train track, kind of looking a little old in this picture. This is the aerial views, composite aerial view. The square up at the top left is even more vacant. Can't tell if there's a soot pile to the right yet or whatever. But this is definitely the area. Let's go 2006 again. And here they are. Perfect. Perfect. And the square at the top left is more overgrown. Yeah, here's the comparisons. These just boop into existence right here. Suddenly. No explanation. Let's say they were made. Let's say they were made. Let's say they were made. And then, like from 2007 to now, 20 years just about, now they're being deconstructed. So let's say this is the timeline. It doesn't go back very far in this, because I tried to go back further than 1992, and it turned into the satellite composite, which blurred the holy gel out of this. It just lumped it all up. It did not clear up, and I was not gonna wait around to see if my internet would fix that. So, yes, this is as good as the satellite gets. This is one of the first publicly accessible aerial views of this land. And it's interesting. It's enough for a survey. But it was interesting to note that plane composite and satellite composite, different times, and even the first plane composites were kind of patchy. And they mostly focused on the populated areas, or what looked to be populated areas. And so this video footage is about when I figured out this, it was like a satellite image and plane image, or, you know, kind of concluded or assumed all of that. Then I started trying to experiment more with the time lapsing, and I don't know, soon I gave up because I can't push this computer too much at once. Gotta constantly be clearing out the memory. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. Let me know what you think about all of this. I really got a shout out to John Levi, who's documented the coke ovens that he's found, and finding these were really, really mind-blowing, because I hadn't found anything like this yet in Arizona, and I wasn't really going to reveal much about the location in this video until I did decide to do the research and look up the history to see if these were known about, because after I saw them basically appear within the past 30 years, my lifespan, I had a lot more questions. And zooming in, of course, it looks like there might have been a camp or a town here. When I looked up the history, there was a camp nearby that had a post office and all kinds of stuff. I looked for pictures and stuff, so I'm going to show you all the interesting stuff that I had found. But definitely looking like there's a settlement here, but it looked like it had been cleared out, like steamrolled down. You see the train here looking fairly thin and very dirty. Don't know what state these were in. And it's just crazy to have these coke ovens way out here be built within the past 30 years when there's no infrastructure to be processing all of that. It doesn't make sense for it to be. So I decided, like I said, to look up the history. Like, what do you guys think? Before I show you the history, when do you think these coke ovens were originally built? How long do you think they've been there? I'll give you a little bit of time while this video footage plays over the composites. And it's something interesting to go check out, and it's a nice tool to use in your neighborhood if you're trying to look for local confirmation of a mudflood. It is some mind-blowing stuff we have access to at the moment. I guess we all just gotta use it to wake up ourselves and try not to wake up other people who aren't ready for it yet, and just keep going and remembering we're not alone. Okay. Oh, so many mic problems. Anyways. So I looked up the history, and the first article that I found was very positive for visiting it. It was written by a usual, I feel like a desert bro. Some regular old Joe who just has a bunch of free time and all the off-road vehicles to go exploring, and they just basically wrote about the journey out there. No history. They did note at the bottom that you cannot visit without explicit permission from the owner. I looked up the history, and there is no house there. The ranch house, which wasn't in any of the maps that I saw, was taken away long ago. This next article has the real history, and it's a bit more of a reality check for what we have going on today. So apparently, according to this article, these coke ovens were built in 1860s. Let me check. Yeah, okay, so no, there is no clear documented evidence of who built them, why they built them, or when they were built. They've just been associated with this mining camp, the whatever, that was built in 1905. And it only lasted about 10 years, and it is completely wiped off that map now, as we saw. It's nowhere near those coke ovens. Nothing else was near there. Not even a ranch house that isn't there anymore. That was that odd square that's overgrown. Nothing. So let's theorize. Who knows if anybody even wrote or documented about these ovens before they appeared on the map, because you saw it with me, they just appeared. If they were built in 1905, then they must have been buried or flooded over in between that time, and it's been buried for over 100 years until they have been recently uncovered. Who uncovered them? I have a suspicion it was one person uncovered them, and there's a picture of somebody trying to live in one of them. Now, I think whoever has been dismantling it is whoever has a hold of the property now. There are officials warning you not to trespass, and they are claiming it is to protect against vandalism, that people are partying it and taking souvenirs, but who is the one doing the taking, and who was the person who restored it to live in? I don't think the person who was trying to live in here has any access to this. And the people who are slowly dismantling it must be the ones in charge of it now. And they are making dang sure that nobody can come out here and visit these. These are 32 feet tall, 72 feet around. It looks like old concrete at the base of them. These stones look puffed, like popcorn, like plasma cooked. You can see the first one has been mortared up. This might be a reverse picture of the one that somebody lived in. Couldn't see any of these doors on the satellite either. But this foundation, this concrete looks old. Who would build this? Who would pour this sophisticated concrete to put these old rocks on here? Doesn't make sense. They would be neat bricks. They would be mortared up. These were finished way before there was a camp here. They were buried somehow. Who knows how long? They've been uncovered, and it's just very simple history. It's hard to even tell. John Levi would definitely blow his mind over this. And to me, these almost look like observatories in the back, like 4 observatories in the back. We see people are camping out in here after it's been destroyed. And yeah, this is insane. This blew my mind. And this just wakes me up every day. This little bridge dam complex here, that reminds me of all the Niagara Falls stuff. There's train tunnels. There's tons of hidden things in this area. Boy, I think I got really excited there. But yeah. Quick image search and we get cross-references with the coke ovens that John Levi has visited. Here, these ones look like they're integrated into the forest. There's tons of different ones. I think I saw some that were being used as a bridge. Yeah, these are a big mystery, and so many people are asleep on it. Where did the ones I find come from? Because the ones I found haven't even been exposed for as long as a lot of these other ones. And there's some mud bricks, or maybe cooked bricks, plasma cooked bricks, melted buildings. Who knows what is going on here, if they were used to cook lime or anything, actually, or if they're part of an infrastructure that is no longer visible. But you can't deny the satellite proof that these things were not there, they were not visible in 1992. You saw that with me. And now some people who have to go through very many hoops to get permission can even go out here and visit this piece of history that is belonging to all of us, that could have been here before America was named America. Could be from the Spanish, could be from, who knows? I don't. And I don't understand why we cannot ask these questions. Well, I do, but I don't understand how people can just expect us to not, to stay awake, to stay asleep. And somehow, I'm thankful for the research everybody is sharing, like John Levi and the rest of the independent alternative researchers. Anyways, I hope I've helped you learn a bit more about what the Mudflood is and kind of a perspective on it. I don't know. I'm at the end of the rope for this video, so I think I'll leave you with the rest of that lecture from Alan Watts and tell everybody to stay safe out there. Thank you all for participating in this research and sharing it. As long as we can do this, this is the most important thing. I feel like we're all just waiting to be told that we can't anymore, for us to figure out the next step together. But anyways, I hope you stay safe, stay blessed, and stay gold, my outsiders.
Now, I'm not saying that, you know, the philosophy of carpe diem, let us drink today for tomorrow we die, and not make any plans. What I am saying is that making plans for the future is of use only to people who are capable of living completely in the present. Because when you make plans for the future and they mature, if you can't live in the present, you are not able to enjoy the future for which you have planned. Because you will have in you a kind of syndrome, whereby happiness consists in promises and not in direct and immediate realizations. So long as you feel that tomorrow it will come. See, on a dollar bill, it always says promise to pay. It's a promissory note. And nobody ever can come across, because the promise is tomorrow, and as we say in common speech, tomorrow never comes. But everything is based on the idea, you see, that you will get it tomorrow, and you can enjoy yourself today so long as tomorrow looks bright. But Confucius once said, a man who understands the Tao in the morning can die contentedly in the evening. That is to say, if you have ever lived one complete moment, you can be ready to die. You can say, well, that was it. That was the good. That I've had it. You see? But if you never live that complete moment, death is always a guy who comes into a bar at 2 o'clock in the morning and says, time, gentlemen, please. And you say, oh, please, one more drink. Not yet. because you haven't really have the feeling that you ever had it, that you ever got there. Now then, the main factor in this kind of conditioning seems to me to be, as I said, the way in which we give children a sense of identity. And in this respect, we do something extraordinarily odd. We define a person. And that is why the sense of ego, of being oneself, is simultaneously a sense of frustration.
Okay, extra bonus time. It seems I did not use the full power of time travel to my full capacity when I had the chance, so now I have to put it back here with the square. So I decided to do that and leave it here, but it soon became apparent that my internet is way too messed up or something to use the time-lapse feature, so I just decided to manually guide it through and see what we could find. Anyways, the goal is to see if we can get a good idea of the changes going on over time around this place, and if we can get a good idea of what exactly changes the pyramid has gone through over time. See, we can't zoom in very well, so that's the oldest, 1984. It looks gray, even more covered with vegetation, but I decided to zoom out and see what all was going on. Looks like the farm right under it is booming. And I'm glad I did this too, because I found a second pyramid, or a second square, neatly orientated the same way. And so, decided let's check out the flow of time around this. So we got our white square mound foundations and a crazy milk dud off to the side. And drastic drought. And I think I wanted to see how the canals started forming on the road, because it's pretty dug out there and leads straight to it. Can't zoom in too much on that. And we see an airport. Pretty empty, spiffy looking airport. Right on top of this square foundation. So let's go through the time lapse and see when about this appeared here. It took me a minute of navigating this Time Lord window I got here, but I finally figured out from the pictures that the sophisticated airport didn't appear until between 1993 and 1994. Anyways, hope you all stay gold for real this time. Enjoy this time-lapsing back and forth footage of an ADHD Time Lord. Good night, y'all.